Will you guys continue allowing them inside? Welcome to Beyond the Title. Thank you for taking the time to really invest in your leadership journey. Today, we're really going beyond the title, beyond the job description, and the corner office to really explore what it truly means to look, sound, and scale like a leader. Because leadership isn't just about authority, it's about authenticity, influence, and the ability to grow others as you grow yourself. And that's exactly what our three inspiring speakers will unpack for us today. And I want to show you who these speakers are and what they are about. So, our first speaker today, we have Isolde Fourie. And Isolde is really going to guide us through how to look like a leader and show up like a leader. We're talking about presence, confidence, and truly those subtle visual cues that shape the first impression with your personal brand, creating lasting credibility. Next, you'll hear from me, Yoke van Dam, and I'm going to guide you through how to sound like a leader through storytelling, your tone of voice, and making really, truly powerful presentations. And then finally, our third speaker will be Hennie Grove, who will show us how to scale like a leader. Once you have the job and you're showing up, acting and sounding in the right way, now you have that newfound of wealth. How are you going to scale that and hold on to that? We would love to invite you to share your thoughts or questions in the chat box throughout the session. And we would love to invite you to quickly just go into the chat box and say, hi, why are you joining us here today? And where are you joining us from? So please go into the chat box and say, where are you joining us from? What are you hoping to learn today? We would love to have you here. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the segment, so stay tuned to really engage directly with our speakers. And don't forget to take notes. So we're really delighted to have you here. Isolde, I can't see the chat box. Are there anyone commenting yet that we can say a shout out to you?
Yoka, the chat box is open, but I am not yet seeing anyone that has commented there. Oh, here we go. Here's a few people. We've got Beatrice Fourie, and we have Hannelie from Centurion. Welcome, Hannelie. Mark and Johanni, Letitia from Midrand, and Cherise from Centurion. Paul van Strandberg, if I'm saying that right. Estelle from Harties.
Oh,
Caroline from
wow.
Switzerland.
Oh,
We've got
Caroline,
Samantha
thanks for
from
joining
Randall.
us. Yay. So amazing. So I think let's get started. We want to keep on time, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker for today. And our first speaker is going to be Isolde Fourie. And Isolde, if you want, you're welcome to actually share your slides. I'm going to stop sharing. Isolde Fourie is a marketing strategist and personal branding expert with over 14 years of experience in marketing. She's worked across B2B and B2C industries, both locally and internationally, helping brands to communicate with impact and purpose. After studying marketing and building a successful corporate career, Isolde found her own business in 2023, empowering companies and leaders to build brands that stand out, connect, and grow. I would love to welcome Isolde Fourie with a tour called Beyond the Title, Learn to Look Like a Leader. Over to you, Isolde.
Thank you so much, Yurka, and welcome to everyone today who's attending the webinar. I'm really excited to be talking to you today on looking like a leader. To start off, I'm first going to tell you a bit of a story. So meet David. David is a COO of a major company. He's got the right skills, the right mindset, and the results to prove it. 8 years with the company, leads a team of 35, builds systems that actually work. He's respected, reliable, and everyone knows if you want something done right, you go to David. Then the announcement comes. Applications are open for the CEO position. David applies. He's confident, prepared. because he has earned it. But when the results are announced, unfortunately, he doesn't get the job. The board said, we're not sure if he's the face of the company. David had the competence, but he didn't have the presence. He had the experience, but not the visibility. And that is where personal branding comes in. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So, what exactly is personal branding? So, by definition, personal branding is the deliberate process of shaping how others perceive you by showcasing your unique skills, strengths, story, and value in a consistent but authentic way. In simple terms, it's not just who you are, it's how the world sees you. Because here's the truth. In today's world, your personal brand speaks long before you do. It opens doors, or like David, it closes doors. So let's talk about how can you make sure your brand works for you and not against you. Building a personal brand isn't about logos, filters, or anything like that. It's about clarity, consistency, and confidence. Think about it like this. Your personal brand is made up of three layers. So one is how you see yourself. Two is how others see you. And three, how consistently those two align. When those layers line up, that's when brand becomes magnetic. So I've created a three-step framework that I'd like to share with you today on how to look like a leader. We're gonna look at refining your identity, building your brand online, and make your voice known. So let's start with the first one, refining your identity. What does that mean? So I'm going to ask you a question, and it's a bold question at that. What do I want to be known for? And let's think about it. What does that mean? Not your job title, your impact. What's your edge? What's that thing people should instantly associate with you when your name comes up in a meeting or LinkedIn search? If you can't answer that, others will answer it for you, and they might be wrong. So let's quickly, I want you to take a few seconds here and just by yourself think of 10 words or less of what describes you, what words describes you. That's the anchor of your personal brand because when you know who you are, it becomes much easier for everyone else to know who you are. You're welcome to give us some comments in the chat as well as we go along and how you're finding is there some light bulb moments coming up for you? Because not a lot of people take the time to actually think about their brand. So I want to move on to number two. Number two is building your brand online. Okay, so now you know who you are. Well, hopefully, okay. And it's time to make sure the world knows it too. And this is where a lot of leaders drop the ball. They've built up this powerhouse career. They are experts in what they do. But when you search for them online, you find a headshot, a very short bio, and then tumbleweed rolling across their LinkedIn profile. Literally nothing. And here's the thing, if people can't find you, they can't follow you. Your digital presence is your modern day boardroom introduction. So let's make it count. When someone lands on your LinkedIn, they should instantly think, this is the person that knows their stuff, they look credible, and I want to work with them. So I've put in a very basic LinkedIn checklist, and I'm also going to send you a resource afterwards. So stay tuned, please. So firstly, your current profile photo. Guys, we don't want any wedding crops or sunglasses or you were at I don't know, a party or some sorts. No, we want a professional looking photo. Your banner image. Now that on LinkedIn is the image right on top of your profile photo. Use it as a free advertising space. Add your brand colors, your tagline, or something that visually says what you do or what you're all about. Then your headline. And a lot of people just go for I'm the CEO at X company or I'm the manager at this company. Maybe try something different. Maybe try and think about it in a way that will intrigue people. Maybe something like strategic operations leader, driving efficiency, building people, delivering results. It tells me who you are and what you bring to the table. And then lastly, what I want to speak to you about quickly is about the About Us section. Now, forget about the corporate fluff. Nobody likes that corporate fluff. We all know it's just advertising and probably ChatGPT writing up a wonderful thing. I want it to be as authentic as possible. So write like you're talking to your potential client or investor over coffee. Start with what you're passionate about, the impact you've made, and the problems that you have solved. Your profile is your shop window. When it's polished and authentic, it becomes a magnet for opportunities, partnerships, media, board seats, promotions, and all of that. So here's another exercise for you. When we're done with this webinar, I challenge you, go Google yourself and see what comes up. Then ask yourself, would I hire me based on what I see? Just let me repeat that. Would I hire myself based on what I see? I hope that penny dropped for you. Let's move on to number 3. Make your voice known. All right. So now we've refined your identity. You've built an online foundation. Well, not yet. You're going to, right? Now comes the part that separates the quiet achievers from the visible leaders. It's time to make your voice known. Because in today's world, credibility isn't claimed, it's demonstrated. You can't just be good at what you do, okay? You have to show people you're good at. You have to show them that you're good at what you do. And that's how influence grows. Think of it like this. You're sitting at a boardroom table or on a Zoom call, and you're full of ideas. But if you don't speak up, someone else will say it, and guess who gets the credit? Not you, but that person. The same principles applies online. If you're not sharing your perspective, people assume, well, you don't have one. If you don't share your opinion, you don't have one. Visibility creates credibility, consistency, and builds trust. And that's why we do online branding for ourselves. And this is how you do it. Okay, so when you start sharing your voice, you become part of the conversation, not just an observer. That's how people start saying, hey, I keep seeing your posts. And that one sentence is the sound of your brand working. The things that you should keep in mind of what you can post is start sharing value. So post short insights, lessons you've learned, reflections from your week, the work that you do. Show your personality. People follow people, not job titles. People do business with people that they like, know, and trust. So if you're funny, be funny. If you're reflective, be thoughtful. Your tone is part of your brand voice. So own it. Be consistent. Now, this is the one thing where a lot of people are not sure how many times must I post a week. You don't need to post daily, guys. It's a lot of work. It's my job. I run a marketing agency, and we have to do either daily posts or post 2 to 3 times a week. It is a lot of work. But for an individual, if it's not your job, try and post twice a week. It's enough. It's meaningful. Mix it up. Do educational posts, behind the scenes moments, a quote that resonates with you. What matters most is that your name keeps popping up on that feed, confidently, consistently, and aligned with your values. So that was a lot, okay? There was really a lot, a lot of information and a lot to think about. But I want to challenge you. Start small. One post at a time, one thought, one insight at a time. The point is not perfection is presence. And let's get the basics right. Let's get your profile up to date. But then just think, what do you want to share this week? It's about being intentional about your brand. Okay, I want to go back to David. David is my guy. He didn't get the CEO job. That's where what's happened next year is he realized it wasn't his competence that held him back, it was perception. So he decided to take control of his narrative. He updated his profile, number one, started sharing insights, number two, and about his leadership, about his projects and customer testimonials, and he started networking. 6 months later, and this, guys, this is based on a true story. 6 months later, another company called him and they said, "Oh, we've been seeing your content, and we're following your work." And they didn't just invite him for an interview; they offered him a seat at the boardroom table. Now that's powerful. And guys, it's not just David. It's not just guys like David. I've heard of so many people that this has happened to, people that have been retrenched, people that didn't know that they were going to lose their jobs. And the next moment that when this happened, people started calling them and say, "Oh, you're available." Now, that is what personal branding does for you. You can't wait to build your brand until it is necessary. You need to build it now before something like that happens, before the opportunity or the crisis comes your way, whichever way it may be. And that is why we do personal branding. So, same David, same skill set. The only thing that changed was how he showed up and how he showed up online. You can be the smartest person in the room, guys. A lot of smart people out there. But if no one knows what you stand for, if no one sees your value and what you think, you'll stay the best kept secret in your industry. And what's the use in that? So here's the truth. Looking like a leader isn't about ego, it's about trust. My challenge to you after today is show up, speak up, and make sure the world sees the leader that you already are. I want to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate being on this webinar today. It's amazing speaking with all of you, and yeah, thank you so much, Yoka.
That was
I
so
want to take this.
amazing. Thank you so much, Isolde. I just want to say the chat box has been lighting up. People are saying, wow, it's great to learn about being authentically themselves. This is very helpful. I'm learning a lot. Thank you, Isolde. And I think you've given like small chunk sizes of what people can do, and you've actually shown through that case study what the impact of that can be. So thank you so much. I think we're all very much inspired to have an opinion and not to keep quiet because if we're keeping quiet, it sounds like we have no opinion. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, Yoka, and thank you for that. And I also think today, where we are now, is we have the opportunity to do that because of technology and because of how business is done out there. So, a lot of people are working remotely. So this is the time to build your online brand. And Yoka, just on that note, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the audience today. So I'm going to just jump right into that. Yoke van Dam, also known as the Kintsugi Queen, helps to mend fractured teams with gold. As a professional speaker, leadership expert, and founder of Y Connect, she's done work in person in South Africa, Switzerland, Dubai, and Pakistan. Delegates from her Power of Persuasion presentation bootcamps have won tenders, are speaking on large stages, and even won funding to make their own short films. Let's welcome Yoke with her talk, Sound Like a Leader. Yoke, over to you.
Have you ever sat in a presentation and it sounded like an arrogant brag? Did that inspire you? Did it make you want to take any action in your life? Or did it actually feel a little bit icky? So I was very excited when I was invited by a friend to attend this business event a while ago. And arriving at the event, the celebrity actor stole the show. I don't know what impressed me most, if it was the velvety smoothness of his voice, the way he just drew the audience in and held us in the palm of his hand, or if it was like his fluid movements. He wasn't even aware of the way his body was moving. But for me, watching that guy speak was like watching the Russian Ballet Corps dancing Swan Lake. Perfection amplified. But that's when the cracks started showing. 45 minutes later, the main speaker arrives. and he's unprepared and noticeably frazzled. People are scraping their chairs nervously on the floor in this venue. His Apple Mac doesn't want to connect to the screen. The screen keeps on flickering. And after about 10 minutes, he starts reading these PowerPoint slides where he's telling us about his incredible life and all of the successes he's had. And I was underwhelmed. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think should a leader sound like? Please go to the chat box and tell us. What should a leader sound like? I'm inviting you to engage with me today. Composed and prepared. Thanks, so shy. Confidence coming up quite a few times. Inspiring. It's nice to have you here, Mark. Confident, authentic, and humble. Calais. Creativity on the topic. Inspiring, a visionary. Authentic. Thanks, Ingrid. Credible, experience, authoritative. Confidence is really coming up quite a bit, as well as authenticity and inspiring and yet humble. Thank you, Beatrice. So today I'm going to be sharing with you a few things that I believe will allow you to sound like a leader that can actually inspire your audience. And the four areas that I'm going to be focusing on are this. Great leaders are able to tell an amazing story that can actually inspire you. They're able to sound calm, they're relatable, and they can think on their feet. So those are the four areas that we will be covering today. So I started off telling you a story. The first time I heard of storytelling was with the well-known storytelling expert Petra Janse van Vuren. And she said to us, if you want to tell a great story, you need to pay attention to these four areas. What is the plot? What is the timeline? Who are the characters? And most importantly, what is the conflict point? So if we had to quickly analyze the story that I told you, what is the plot? I went to this event. The MC stole the show. What is the conflict point? The main speaker that was supposed to be the keynote speaker was unprepared. He underwhelmed us and he was very arrogant and that couldn't really connect to the audience. So that was the conflict point. You're actually going to see this speaker, but the speaker is not really helping you in any way. So if you're going to tell a story, what you could add to add a lot more depth to it is timeline, venue. So where was it? So I didn't tell you that it was in Melrose Arch at specific offices. Who were some of the characters? So there was the MC, there was the speaker, there was me, there was the audience. You could go into much more detail in there, but you also then want to look at who are friends, who are allies, who are villains. So you could hear that when I was describing the MC, he really impressed us. He was the person we really wanted to listen to, while the main speaker wasn't really inspiring, even though it was his event. So, why is storytelling so important? Many years ago, I read the book Brain Power by Dr. John Medina. And what was very interesting is he said if you tell a story and you use different emotions and you take people on a high and a low, so you're making them happy, you're making them ecstatic, then you're making them horrified, scared, anxious. So, you're taking them almost like on a roller coaster ride. What it does in the brain is your brain releases dopamine, which actually creates stickiness and accesses the memory centers in our brain. So when I heard this, I started experimenting with stories, and I was at that stage doing sales training at AutoTrader. And I started thinking, what stories do I have that could actually create stickiness? So instead of just teaching theory, how can I bring it across with a story that people will remember? And now that was in 2014 to 2019. So many years later, people come up to me and say, oh, we remember the time you fell off the stairs in front of that 2,000 students at University of Pretoria. And ever since hearing that story, I know that I must never visualize myself doing the wrong thing, falling down the stairs. I've started actually changing the programming in my brain and telling myself, what I want to do rather than what I don't want to do. So if you can find stories that have a core message and you actually tell the audience what that core message is, people will remember it and it will be releasing that dopamine in their brain. What you also don't want to do is you don't want to cast yourself as the hero of the story. If you're telling a story, don't make it about yourself. A story should be about your team or the audience where you're actually taking them on a journey. So if you're thinking of movies, you almost want to be Dumbledore and Harry Potter. You're not Harry Potter. So you are the guide, the facilitator, the tour guide, the person that actually, the mentor, the guide that's helping the person. You're not the main character in the story specifically. And that will make you much more relatable to your audience as well. So, how can we be more relatable? If you're standing on a yacht, drinking champagne, talking about the billions of millions of money that you've made, that's not really going to be relatable to your team. When I was working at Entrepreneur Magazine, I built a relationship with our editor at the time, Nadine van Moltke. And she always said to me, Yuka, when I interview these top NCOs, I don't tell them, tell me about your successes, tell me about your amazing products and services, tell me about the time you got listed on the JSE. No. She would ask them, what were the hardships you experienced? What was a time that you hit rock bottom? What did you have to overcome? And suddenly people could relate to that. So if you find times that you actually had to overcome things, that will be much more relatable to your team or your audience versus standing on the yacht drinking champagne. So a few weeks ago, I was with Caroline in Davos at the Global SME Summit, where I was running two masterclasses. And at the gala dinner, Honest Khan, the president of the Global SME Summit, shared with us a very vulnerable backstory. And he shared with us when he was very young, he grew up in Bangladesh, and there was actually a war between them and Pakistan. And he actually noticed that his best friend actually got killed in front of him. He had to flee for his life and finally ended up in Switzerland. Life as a refugee in Switzerland was not easy for him. He was rejected in many ways because of his race, his skin color, because he wasn't originally from Switzerland. And finally, he formed a relationship with a lady who he ended up marrying. And when he met her father, it was in the valleys and the hills of Switzerland. And he went to meet the father, and the father said to him, "I'm sorry, but I can't allow you in my house. You'll have to stay outside where the cows are. I'll bring you tea there." This guy was rejected because of the color of his skin. He had to, it was snowing in Switzerland, it was cold, and there he was drinking his tea outside. And he said to us, I've faced so much adversity in my life, and if I could overcome it and achieve this level of success, what is stopping you from going forward and going for your dreams? Listening to his vulnerable backstory, not the glamorous story, not the yacht story, made us relate to him on such a deep level. And I later that night went to him and said, all superheroes have backstories, and you've shared your foundational backstory with us today. Thank you so much for being an authentic, vulnerable leader, actually sharing those hardships with us. So, if you want to be relatable, use human language. Don't use language that you found in the thesaurus or the dictionary that goes over people's heads. Have accessible storytelling and share the hardships, the lessons learned, and people will be able to relate to you so much more. A great leader is able to also sound calm. So I wanted to ask you, have you ever recorded your voice? So in rehearsal for this message today, I was actually doing some voice recordings myself on my cell phone. And it's a great way for you to actually listen to what does your voice image sound like. And sometimes when you're still rehearsing a speech, you can hear the uncertainty in your voice. You can hear that it's sounding boring for you, that there are areas that you're not confident about. So actually hearing what your voice sounds like is a really good learning tool for you. But voice goes so much deeper. When you have a team, your voice can actually signal to them if you're ready to play, fight, laugh, or cry. And I do a lot of work in my presentation bootcamp speaking around the work of Chris Foss, who was an FBI hostage negotiator. He wrote this incredible book, Never Split the Difference. And he said that your voice can actually be a trigger for someone. So Chris Foss was very often negotiating over the phone or through a door with a terrorist that was holding people up, for instance, in a bank. And he said at that time, you need to calm them down very quickly and not trigger this person because otherwise you end up with many bodies. So, hopefully, you're not going to be speaking to terrorists in your line of work. But if you're thinking that more than 70% of the workforce at this stage are actively disengaged and don't enjoy work and are putting down anchors and are moving away from actually moving towards change, you're probably dealing with a very disengaged workforce that can be very passive aggressive. So these techniques can definitely help you. So if we're looking at communication, your tone of voice is about 38% of what gets conveyed. Only 8% is the words you use, and then there's body language. So if you're now sending a text or an email, how much is actually getting lost in translation? And what is that tone actually conveying, or that body language conveying to the audience? So in my presentation bootcamp called the Power of Persuasion Bootcamp, we do a module on voice work. And I always say to my clients, your voice, you almost like a conductor of an orchestra. And if you're thinking of an orchestra, there are lots of different instruments, and a conductor needs to actually know the screen, needs to know the script of all of the instruments. So as a conductor, you're bringing in there the harp is playing, and now it's the violins, and the triangle and percussion, and you are working with rhythm, pace, volume, intensity. So if you're thinking of your voice, if I could give you a tip, if you're working on a very important talk, have it scripted out and imagine that that was sheet music. So you could highlight what are the words that you want to put emphasis on. Where do you want to go faster? Where do you want to slow down? Where do you want to put emphasis? Is there a certain emotion you want to convey for your voice for a specific word? Where can you use the power of pause? So, as you are actually reflecting on this, you can record it and hear what it sounds like, and you can actively improve your voice. You also want to practice out loud because in our head, it doesn't sound the same as it sounds out loud. So, even the way our voice sounds to ourselves in a recording is different than it sounds like when you're just speaking with other people. I don't know if you've picked that up, but be much more intentional with your voice specifically. And then lastly, an amazing leader is able to think on their feet. So I remember many, many years ago. So Nina is here, one of my clients, and we met many years ago, I think 2008 at Toastmasters in Hatfield, Pretoria. And I had just become a Toastmaster, and I was at a conference exhibiting books for Oxford publishers when the exhibitor came to me, the main conference organizer, and said, Yuka, do you want to say something? So there was a conference of 200 people. I was there on behalf of Oxford, and I could have a microphone get on stage. You want to be able to think on your feet. If you're able to think on your feet, you can do media interviews, you can take speaking opportunities, but as a leader, you will very often be asked at a moment's notice to say something, to speak up in a meeting, to run a town hall, or at a conference. They might just give you an opportunity to speak. So, here are some ideas for you that you could make use of. If you, for instance, doing a panel interview and they're asking you a question, you could answer it with past, present, and future. So I'm going to invite you. Does anyone want to quickly put an easy topic for me in the chat box? Nina, do you mind just putting an easy topic for me in the chat box that I can demonstrate this with? December holidays. Okay, let's do that. Or learning to ride a bicycle. Ooh, that's a very interesting one. Okay, so let's do past, present, and future. Growing up, I growing up, I never had the opportunity of actually learning to ride a bicycle. The only bicycle that I had access to was a little tricycle with little spare wheels. And I remember, I'm not sure if it was in my memory or if it was when I was physically riding this tricycle, but I had photos showing how I was covered in mud and chocolate at the same time on this little tricycle. And for many years, I felt that I had a sense of failure because everyone would use the example to say it's as easy as riding a bicycle, and I never had that opportunity. So in 2014, I actually met my husband, and I had to admit to him that I never learned to ride a bicycle. So the next thing, I bought his spare bicycle, and off we went to the Sprite, and he attempted to teach me how to ride a bicycle. So there I was again, almost with spare wheels, with the harness all the way down, trying to not fall around, and ultimately just learning how to get that balance right. I'm not saying that I'm still today the best person riding a bicycle. I eventually sold that bicycle after having a panic attack trying to ride a bicycle in the hills of the Tsitsikamma woods. But if I could look into the future and if I ever wanted to have kids, I would want to give them opportunities to not feel overwhelmed when trying out something new that no one had the opportunity to teach them as a child. Because your parents can't equip you for everything in your life. So I'm not saying that it was amazing, but I just wanted to show you you could go past, present, and future. All right, so then we're looking at here are some other ideas. You want to listen first to what the person's saying. If you're not sure, if you're not sure how to answer it, you could say yes, and then you could actually redirect the question to go elsewhere. You want to pause, sometimes repeat the question back to them to make sure that you understood what they're asking you to answer, and then you go into it. Um, what can really help you is having 2 to 3 stories in your back pocket. So when I go for media interviews, I actually prepare with certain lists for myself, stories. You could put it in a flip file or actually create a little mind map that you could refer to. And this also works very well for interviews, having those 2 or 3 stories in your back pocket that you can use. Then there's the 3 point rule. So if you're giving any answer, you can go past, present, future, opening, body, conclusion, problem, solution, benefit. So, how can you give that answer in 3 points, that small nuggets that people can listen to? And ultimately, what you can also do is prepare about 3 tough questions that they can ask you so that you know that you can answer that. So, I hope I've given you some ideas if you really want to sound like a leader, that you can tell inspiring stories where there's a plot line, where there's characters, and most importantly, a conflict point where you can sound calm, where you're actually paying attention to what your voice sounds like, where you're actually working on sounding in a way that you want to sound like, where you're doing breathing exercises to come across in a better way, and where you're actually choosing where to pause, where to add emphasis, and where to add emotion. And you also want to work on being relatable. So find those curious moments, those stories that people can relate to, those hardships you went through, the conflict points in your life, but make them part of the story. Don't make yourself the hero of the story. Take them on a journey, be their guide, be their Dumbledore. Don't be Harry Potter himself. And ultimately, be relatable. Use open, accessible language that can truly help them. So, what I have done for you is you can grab this QR code. Please go write me a little review. And I've created a few checklists for you. And one is around sounding like a leader. I've created some improv strategies that you can make use of, as well as a storytelling worksheet that can really help you to implement some of these lessons learned. So you're welcome to grab any of that, and please move the bar and just write a few comments about what you thought about this talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Yurka. I just want to comment on what you just said. It was such as inspirational topics that you covered and tips that you gave. The one thing that we typically do in marketing when we do collateral is we tackle a let's say a topic from a problem solution benefit point of view. And it's something that I actually now realize I take for granted because in marketing, my brain is wired to think like that. But if you're not in marketing, for instance, it is good to know when someone does ask you a question, what is important to them? What do they want to know first? And just responding in that way. And I really liked your story about the past, present, and future. So thank you so much for sharing that.
It's a very big pleasure. Just want to get up Hennie's intro. Hennie, do you want to put up your slides?
Yeah, yeah, happy to.
We're going at a pace today. So
Yes, we're doing very, very well.
So our third speaker today is Hennie Grove-Scale, who's a wealth planning strategist and the CEO of Grove Financial Solutions, a second generation wealth planning business that focuses on building connected experiences between people and their money so they can achieve their money goals with greater success. Hennie was recently included in the prestigious Citywire South Africa Top 50 Independent Financial Advisors in South Africa for the 2025 list. Well done, Hennie. Which speaks not only to his dedication to being the best at what he does for the benefit of his clients, but also the trust his clients place in him. More than me telling you what this all means, let me just hand over to Hennie to show you how it can benefit you today. And today, Hennie is talking on scaling your wealth with clarity, with confidence, compounding.
Thank you very much, Yoka, and lovely job you ladies have done so far. So it seems I'm using your past and present story. So I want to go back to when I was a little boy. So there's little me in the corner there. You can see my lovely stick figure drawing skills. That's why I'm not an artist by trade. And I didn't technically yet need these before. It's looking at too many spreadsheets. So I was very fortunate. Our business is a second generation business, and my father used to take me along to some of our client meetings, or to some of his client meetings rather. And it was always fascinating to me, and it's a huge privilege that people allow or did allow that. But I noticed a curious thing. My father had all the graphs and technical stuff. It used to be these really thick files because he didn't have laptops yet at that point in time. But he'd take the file along with him, look at all the little numbers and graphs, and then he'd draw a picture for the client, connecting them to very, very simple concepts. And looking through this and trying to understand it, I had a question which I eventually asked him. I said, why are you drawing these pictures for people? Your drawing is not great. Your handwriting is not great. Why do you do this when you have all of the printed out documentation with you? And he said he used to record himself going to client meetings. And every time a client didn't progress in the direction that he wanted them to progress to, he would go and re-listen to the recordings. He bought a little voice recorder that he carried along with him. And he said he would notice exactly where he went off on a tangent and probably started losing the client. And later he learned that making complex things more complicated is more an ego thing than it actually helps people. That's why he drew very simple pictures. They were underpinned by the more complex concepts underneath them, but it connected people to an end goal and got them there much more successfully. And those are some principles that we built our business on, just in a slightly different way today. Because what you notice is many people try and build their house upside down. They start trying to build by the side of the roof to get the thing up and running. And then they don't understand why they never ever get their house built. And there's some simple foundations that you need to do to get it properly set up. We don't need to overcomplicate things. We need to do the very, very basic things very well. And that'll already get you ahead of probably 98% of people out there. That's not the way how we typically go about it. So I just want to have a quick pause and ask you for a quick reflection. So when it comes to your money, which word best describes you better right now? Clarity or confusion? So if you're brave enough, I know money is a very personal topic usually, but if you're brave enough, go ahead and drop it in the chat. Or if you have a better word than what I put up there, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. Clarity, Beatrice, confusion. Okay, so we're at a 50-50 at the moment. All right, I'll keep the chats open here on the side. You're welcome to go ahead. Uncertainty. Clarity. That's great. I love it. Clarifusion. All right, perfect. Love the complex. So there's a variety of emotions around money. So this is typically when we get a new client, this is what many of them feel like. They come to us with all of these questions because many people's money are a mess. So they ask, what if I die today? Will my family be okay? Should I have an emergency fund? Should I not? How much should it be? Should I have severe illness or dreaded disease covered? Do I earn well? Do I not earn enough? Are my debt levels reasonable? Is there such a thing? And all of these things tie into our financial picture. And they actually feel very, very messy if you look at it like this. So what most people do to solve this is one of two things. They either create a simple 609-point plan, which is very complicated, that they try and solve this with under a bunch of different scenarios, and they keep changing this plan. It never actually gets to fruition. Or they go like the picture on the right side, they just stick their head in the sand and hope everything will be okay. Now, if you look at this, there's a couple of roads that you can follow when it comes to your money. The first road there on the left, which is basically the previous slide, neither of these tend to work out very well. You end up in a hole in the ground. But if we look on the right side, there's two main roads that you can take, and both get you to a pretty decent place. Now, the first is you walk your road with a wealth or a financial planner, such as myself, or another one you have a relationship with that you trust. And typically, you find a good one and they guide you along the road. They take you through a few set steps. They help you organize your money and make it simple. The other thing you can do is you can walk the little path by yourself. The one path is not excluded from the other one. You can start on your own and you can tie into a guided path, or you can start on a guided path and at some point go on your own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpack both of these scenarios. I'm going to show you by a case study that we put together for this webinar some of the tools that we use to simplify that complicated picture for our clients. And you're welcome to take anything that you see there that you find useful if it applies to your situation. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of rules of thumb that you can use if you want to DIY the thing and just get into the right ballpark at least. All right, so let's solve this from a wealth planning perspective. So one of the software pieces we use is called Asset Map. It's software that was developed in the USA that was adapted for South Africa, but we can use it for any global client. We can accommodate any currency. Basically, what we do is we take that messy picture, we have a discussion with our client, and we put all of it into the software. And what the software then does is it breaks it up into a very simple picture, and this is called an asset map. So what it does is it takes the mess, it puts your income and your expenses. We just focus on a few key numbers usually in the top left side here. It breaks up all of your work pension, your personal pension contribution, tax-free, and it puts it in the bottom left. All of your insurance, medical aid, wills, any other legal documents are at the top. Other investments, emergency reserves on the right, and it breaks up your debt and it puts it right at the bottom for you. So this one, there's a couple of discussions we can have from this. For the people that are situated in other parts of the world, I did this in rands. Like I said, we can accommodate other currencies. You're sitting at roughly 1750-ish to the dollar and just under 20 to the euro today. So just do it divided by 20 if you want to translate it into your currency. Now this we can map out for a person on their own level. So you'll see Mr. Brain Smartens we have here in the middle. He's 35 years old, or we can do it on a family basis. We tie everything together and we give you just one map. Now, we can pick you up wherever you are in your client journey, and that's an important thing. And that's a good way to assess if you're dealing with a good financial professional. If they try and force where they want you to be and don't meet you where you are, that should be a little bit of a red flag. In our business, we try and accommodate wherever you are. If you have no idea where you are, we can do a complete asset map for you. If you're only going through a retrenchment, like Isolde also mentioned earlier, or if you only need coaching, or if you're only heading to retirement or at retirement stage, we can pick you up in any of those stages. We can do it as a single need, or we can plug it into an asset map and pick it up from there. Now, that is the simple part of it. The back end that you don't have to see for a client that we typically run, and I'm going to give you some free resources that you can do this in a very simple way to stress test your own finances, is our system runs, it's basically, we look at where plans break. So we look at your 6 L's of financial loss, essentially, things that can hit you in life. And what the system does is it runs an algorithm in the background, and it gives us a quick spot check. It tells us across these areas, given that little map that we build, are you okay or are you not okay? Now, I know what a lot of people are doing today is they plug in a couple of numbers into AI. They ask for a plan, and it might work, it might not work. So I'll show you the dangers of doing that as well. So loss of life, typically if you die today, which is not a very comfortable thought, simply running algorithms that said, okay, no, the client's perfectly fine, but we can dig into any of these numbers at the back end with what we call target maps. So basically what we do is we say, what do you really want? What do you have? And what does this all mean for you? So for this client, Mr. Smartens, we said, we're not going to go with the typical, if you were to die today, we only want to cover your debt and a couple of final expenses, because unfortunately it costs money to die as well, and some emergency reserves. You're 35. If your family lost you today, even if you paid off the house, they would still need to pay all the municipal fees, levies, taxes, all of that. So we need to fund a portion of your income. Here we set 70% until 65, and we adjust that for inflation, a cost of living adjustment. And then we have a look, we say, versus what we have from your map, what do we want to include if you were to become deceased? All your retirement stuff, your tax-free things, your work cover, your work-life cover that you have, and your personal life cover. And we build this out across all of the different type of finances that you can cover. Emergency funding, long-term care events, those are severe illnesses like heart attacks, strokes that are very, very common. Disability, if you lose both legs like one of our clients did and you are not able to do your job anymore, or loss of life, that's the example that we covered now, or retirement. And it gives you a simple picture. And what our software then does, like I said, all of this more complicated stuff's in the background. It aggregates it into a simple picture. Now, most clients prefer to have just this little picture at the top, just the asset map, because you can cover most of your discussions from that. And some will link up to their target maps, and we can help them prioritize this. And that's what I'll show you in the DIY section of it, how you can do that. And we give clients access to this. Right. So from the asset map specifically, apart from all the numbers and graphs and stuff, there's a few other discussions you can have. Again, meeting a client exactly where they are. Now, it's important to remember that if you look at your finances, it's never a set plan in concrete, just done and dusted. You never look at it again. It's always a living document. It's a living plan. It needs to develop as you develop in time. So one of the areas, for example, if you watch YouTube a lot, you'll see many people talk about expenses. They say, just stop buying that expensive cup of coffee and then you'll become rich, right? But if you really think about it, there's two parts of the scale. There's expenses and there's incomes. And if you think back to the asset map, we put both of them on there because you can aim to spend less than you earn, which is what most people advocate, and that's good. Or you can aim to earn more than you spend. Or you can combine these things. Essentially what you're trying to do, and what we look at through a consulting around finances meeting, is we're looking to see how we can balance these things. How do you weigh down your income scale through various income streams, through multiple types of income, and through increasing skills like Isolde and Yoke both shared with you? That is one input that we can use. And then from that map, we can pick up any concept in financial markets, your financial runway, your living cost, and we can dig into any of these different type of things. If you just do a simple picture, you're already ahead of most of people. These are cherries on top that tie to you as a person. So just to maybe close off that section, there's a QR here. It's our Growth and Wealth Studio app. It's a very simple app that you can use to get in touch with us. If you want to map out your own asset map, you just go to the Get in Touch with Us link, and you go to this huge button in the middle. You don't have to speak to anyone. You basically log in, put in whatever you need, and you put in what you need help with. If you just want to play around with a couple of tools that we put together, you can go to the Money Tools section. And there's a few interesting things. If you're struggling with your money from a behavioral perspective, you can go through and find out what your money persona is. It's a study it's a guided form that we put together on just probably about over 200 studies that gives you a money persona and gives you specific wins, losses, challenges, and ideas, your specific money persona. You can stress test your money basically through this financial fire drill checklist. And those are those stress tests that I spoke to you earlier. It's a simple sheet that you complete. It asks you a couple of questions around your finances. It's personal to you. You can have a look at, you download the PDF, and you tick it, and you see where your money is at. And you can go through any of these other tools. All right, so let's move on to the DIYing this, a couple of rules of thumb. So you decide the road that's for you is you want to do this yourself. You at least want to get into the right ballpark, which is also perfectly fine. And what we do here is I took some steps and summarized it from you from, it's basically an 8-step financial reset that we do. It's more of a coaching framework that we use, which we're considering packaging into a self-guided course. So if you are interested in a type of course like this, drop your name in the comments. If you want early or cheap or heavily discounted or free access, and if it's available, we'll make it available to you. Basically, what we're looking at is we picked up a person, they are in distress, and we're going to take them through a couple steps to survive, to stabilize, and to strengthen their finances. So getting to exact rules of thumbs you can apply to your personal finances. We looked at step 3. So this is a build your life happen shield. And if you tie this back to the beginning where I said many people try and build their house upside down, they start building by the roof. They try and build wealth and structures and all sorts of fancy things before they've protected themselves from life. So while they're busy trying to build wealth, they get a stroke, they get a heart attack, an emergency comes up, and they end up breaking all of that wealth that they build. So this step is to put a small shield between you and life to protect some of your most important things. And one of your most important assets, maybe I should actually pause there and ask you in the comments, what do you think is your most important asset? If you had to take a guess, generally, what is your most important asset? Health? Family? Time? Good one. You? Very good. These are all, you people are thinkers, deep, deep thinkers. All right. One of your most important assets from a financial perspective, tricked you a little bit, is your ability to earn an income. If you think about how you generate all of your wealth, all of that comes from income, unless you're lucky to be a trust fund baby, but you still need income. You have to earn an income. You have to not spend all of that income. And what is left, you have to buy assets with that can give you more income. And here's the problem, and this is why you put a life happen shield between you and life. If you start working at the beginning of your career, let's say you're 20 or you're 25, your ability to earn an income, that potential is massive because you still have to work for another 40 years. And what happens to many people, and we have clients across the age spectrum, they get severely sick. They lose their ability to earn an income. So those millions that you could have generated in future is simply gone. And that is why you protect that to a very small extent first. You put a few basic covers, small covers in place that are coincidentally very, very cheap, especially the younger you are. So you cover, it's like a baby emergency fund, half a month's worth of expenses. You cover a little bit of death in case something happens to you, roughly 4 to 5 times your annual income. So if your annual income is R1,000,000 or $50,000, just take that times 4 to 5. Disability, so that's, like I said, that client of ours that lost both his legs, that couldn't do his specific job anymore, you at least cover 3 times your annual income. And for severe illness, heart attacks, things like that, that are very, very much more common than you'd realize, you put a basic cover in place. Then, Once you put the shield between you and life, you've protected your most important financial asset. What you do is you kill the debt, because debt in many forms are like trying to run a race with an anchor tied to you. It's like if you're in a boat and you're trying to go really fast, your boat has a bunch of holes in it. And what you're trying to do is go out into the deep sea with your boat with holes in it. You have to plug the holes first to make the boat whole so that you can go fast. So what you do is you list all of your debts, non-mortgage, so non-house debt. And there's two ways you can go about it. You can use a debt snowball, or you can use a debt avalanche. Now, a debt avalanche says you take all of your debts, you list them from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. You simply start at the top. You allocate extra until it's done. Mathematically, that is the fastest way to go about it and solve all of your debt. Psychologically, it's not the best way. Psychologically, the best way to go about it is the debt snowball. So what the debt snowball says, you list your debts from small to large, and you simply pay them off from the smallest one first. The reason why that is psychologically the best way is because it gives you these little wins along the way. And it's very important to track your progress. So you put it on whatever paper, a piece of paper, put it on your fridge, tick them off as you go, celebrate every single one. Just don't use overly expensive champagne while you're in that step, but celebrate every step as you win it. And then there are some red flags that we built in as well. If the total value, for example, of your vehicles are more than half of your annual income, that is something to think about. We find many clients that they're up to their ears in debt and they drive 2 or 3 cars. And when we start asking them, why do you have these cars? They don't know. They just own it. They pay insurance on all of it. They have to put fuel in all of it. They have to service all of it. And they get skinned alive financially. Once you've dropped the anchor, you've plugged the holes in your boat, then you can move on to really fortifying your finances, make that shield between you and life big. And this is where you build it out to proper protective amounts. Now, just to maybe show you how this ties back, if you take life cover, if you were to become deceased today, you say 10 to 15 times your annual income. If you earn R1 million, that's 10 million Rand roughly worth of cover. If you were to invest 10 million Rand, drawing a 6% odd income, that gets you to roughly 500,000, 50% of your income that you can draw per year. You can bump it up, but then you'll draw down your capital. So that's all of these get you into those little ballparks. These are the basic ones we spoke about. And there are also a couple of extended ones, and I'm not going to stand still in too long, but you can have a look at it. Funeral cover, like I said, it unfortunately costs money when you die. If on most life cover, good life cover has this included already. If you were to become deceased, it's already included there. So have a chat with your advisor, check on your policy schedules if it's in there. It's a simple, practical thing you can do right now. Make sure your beneficiaries are up to date and you have a will. If you were to become deceased, tell people where assets are supposed to go. This creates huge problems in families. And then depending on the specific country, how things are beneficiated allows them to sometimes bypass a lot of the taxes and costs in the process of winding up your estate. Medical cover, that's, I would think, pretty self-explanatory. It can cost you hundreds of thousands or millions if you end up in hospital. Short-term insurance, especially if you have a finance vehicle, make sure it's in place. You don't want to crash into someone and then have massive debts. And there's some basic rules around estate liquidity as well. So if you look at these roads, like I said, you want to avoid the first one. That mostly sucks and doesn't get you to a good place. Any of the roads on the right side, you can take and it'll get you into a decent enough place. Whether you're doing a DIY road in the middle that ties up to another road, or you DIY it all yourself, or you get a financial professional to walk the road with you. It's just important to remember that your rules of thumb, your ballpark plans are not specific to you. And that's probably where a financial professional can assist you a little bit to do some of the more exact calculations. Because typically how you'd run this over time is when you're younger, your coverages, life cover, disability cover is higher because you don't yet have other wealth. As you become more wealthy and you build up assets, your assets start taking care of some of these needs. You can actually bring down a lot of your insurance covers because you become self-funded from your assets. So that's the road a good financial professional will walk with you. In case you missed it, I'm just going to leave up the slide with the QR to our app. going to ask you if you want to add it to your home screen. You're welcome to go ahead and do that. Play around with the tools if you want to. If you ever need some help, reach out. If, like I said, if you want to DIY a couple things, there's quite a few resources, and I usually keep adding onto it. So welcome to go ahead and keep that for yourself. And that is me. I think I went like a minute or two over.
Hennie, that was
Apologies.
so amazing. I loved like your metaphor of the avalanche versus the snowball. That was like really amazing. And I think those financial coaching tips that you want to actually put together in a program, once you have that, we can maybe send out an email to people that attended that they can just be aware that there is a product available in the market if you guys want to get it. Um, I liked what you were speaking about putting, I don't know what you called it, a barrier between you and your life, and then after that, killing the debt.
Life happens,
It was
shield.
just the
Yeah.
shield. Yes, love that. Love
Mm.
that. I thought it was very practical and great insights. I don't think we speak about money enough. Can feel like such an uncomfortable topic that you made us feel very comfortable, and it's so nice to actually hear that a lot of this passion actually originally came when you were a little boy listening to your dad. How amazing! What a legacy
Yeah, no,
to touch
definitely.
on. That was so amazing. So, guys, we want to open the floor for Q&A. I will share the contact details of all of the speakers. So, if you have any questions for Isolde, for Hennie, or myself, you're more than welcome to actually just come off mute, or you can put it into the chat box and we will answer that for you. I'm just going to share the contact details of all of us as well. So let's just quickly check. Isolde, maybe you can see if you're finding any questions specifically. Yeah, so any questions on the personal brand side, on the looking like a leader, sounding like a leader, or scaling like a leader, we're here for you.
Thank you, Yurka. Whilst people are just thinking about questions that they might have, I'll share some questions that I typically receive from a personal brand point of view. Uh, One of the things that people want to know is, well, firstly, how do I update my LinkedIn profile? A lot of people are scared. I noticed a lot of people are scared to do that. And it's actually not so difficult. And there are a lot of tools available in order to do that. It's easy to just go click on your profile. There's a lot of edit buttons. And it's something I'm also going to share as a resource afterwards to help you do that. And I think that's one of the first steps that you can take. Is posting too often on LinkedIn watering down one's brand? That's the question. Thank you so much. Posting too much on LinkedIn. So it depends all on the type of industry you are in. If you think about people that are speaking about, let's say, health, so fitness, or maybe they're doing some cooking, you want to see them all the time. And you can maybe some people that also see these types of posts as well, they'll agree with me. You know, you want to go onto your feed and see them every day. But if we're talking from a B2B perspective, perhaps it is better to less is more. So you don't want to add to post too often because then it could be quite overwhelming you, and people think that, it is something that they're seeing too often. So a rule of thumb in business is typically 2 to 3 posts per week. I hope that helps.
Isolde, would it also have an impact on the amount of page impressions that get served? If you're posting too many times, would LinkedIn actually show it to fewer people, or how does the algorithm work in terms of that?
So if yes, 100%. So if your algorithm picks up that no that people aren't really interested in this topic that you are speaking about or the content that you are producing, it's going to show it to less and less people. So that's also something that you should look at. See how the impressions, how the reach, are there comments on it? Are people liking it, loving it? Try and get as many interactions on your post by sharing it with people, even on WhatsApp. Send people the WhatsApp link and ask them to please comment on this or like it. It just helps the algorithm pick up that your post is out there and that people want to actually see more of this. That will definitely help. your post gets seen more.
I see there's a question from Nina Pavlovic. How do you prepare to answer tough questions without sounding rehearsed? So I'll answer with a joke, Nina. You can throw a M and a R in there. I'm just kidding. So perhaps pause, really deeply listen to what the person is saying, repeat the question back to them, and then, pace yourself so you're not like running through it. So try to be as authentic as you can, so you don't come across as arrogant, but rather humble. So I personally don't think that it would necessarily come across as rehearsed unless you're reading from a script. So instead of scripting it, maybe have a few bullet points that you could just reference.
Seems to be about the depth of the questions. I think with all of these things, it's something we encounter often is people don't know where to start, and they almost it's like they're waiting for their ship to come in, and then they'll fix their things. Whereas you actually want to, build a ship yourself and go where you're supposed to be. And I think that probably broadly applies across everything we shared with people. It can feel so overwhelming. I remember starting out with LinkedIn, or when you try and learn leadership skills, it feels like a lot. It feels very, very overwhelming. You almost don't know where to start. And the trick is to just start anywhere and just expand and build from that. Just update your LinkedIn profile picture at least, or update your job title. Some people's are, 2, 3 jobs back, or there's just nothing going on. Just go and interact somewhere. You'll quickly see it's very easy today to see what people are doing to start getting ahead. And once you get into the swing of things with the basics, it's very easy to build from there and expand strategies from there.
I want to ask a question to both of you. If people in this audience wanted to refer business to you, what would the ideal type of client look like, Isolde, and what would you typically be able to do for that company?
Sure. Thank you, Yurka. Thank you for the question. Well, from a personal branding point of view, I work with managers, executives, anyone aspiring to be a leader, to help them look like a leader online. So typically what we do is I go and assess your LinkedIn profile, assess what you have on your profile, and I help you in a very practical online session go through it step by step by step by step. So anyone that is interested in that, I also, like I mentioned earlier, I do have a marketing agency, and there we actually run social media as well as graphic designs, digital marketing, paid marketing, all the kind of marketing that a company would need. We do as an agency as well. One thing that is a little bit different that not a lot of agencies do, that we do, is we also do ghostwriting on LinkedIn for executives. So executives typically don't have a lot of time to manage their own LinkedIn profiles. So what that means in a very practical sense is that we would share their company's updates on their LinkedIn profile. We'd go and comment or like or connect with people that they send to us. So it's not being authentic, it's still authentic, but it's just helping them save that time. So we do all that type of services for people in B2B as well as B2C. Thank you for the question, Yurka.
It's a pleasure. Hennie, do you want to go? And then there's a question for Isolde as well. So first to you, if people had to refer business to you, who would you want referred to you?
Yeah, so I think our type of client overlaps a lot with Isolde's. Our business has a wide variety of clients. Let me maybe start there and try and help people, as I said, where they are. We have very young clients. Some of my friends' kids who are 5 and 6 and 7 have investments with us, and some of our clients are in their 90s, and
Love that.
everyone in between, professionals, businesses. Typically, the clients that we work with are your executive professional type of clients. And in your businesses as well, we can put in place the necessary business structures. So if you have a bunch of employees and you need to put in place corporate benefits for them, that we can also do. And what we also then find is people, as they're approaching retirement, We get a lot of those, and people going through retrenchments. We are getting quite a bit of those at the moment. The I think they would cover it. The most difficult clients are the ones that have never done anything and are at retirement, and they come and sit at your desk and tell you, here's your chance to become a legend. I've never done anything. Those are not always the ideal ones, but we can help them as well.
So from my side, there was actually a few clients that attended today, and some of these clients, I've specifically helped their teams to do like a team alignment. So where teams are having conflict with each other, where management has changed, often where there's been restructuring any as well. So now they need to like rebuild trust, find their flow again. So we focus a lot on things like emotional intelligence, the different phases of a team, and just getting a team to get to know each other and be vulnerable and work well together. And then I also work with leaders. So that seems to be a trend between the three of us. So I do a lot of leadership development. Then I also have individual leaders who come to me for individual leadership coaching. Some of them we work on their brand, how do they motivate their team, how do they delegate better. And then I have a presentation bootcamp. So that's really some of the things that we touched on today, like how can you speak better and prepared. And what has been quite cool is some of these people have actually won tenders and even won funding to make a short form. So sometimes your pitch or your presentation can actually open doors. So those are just some of the ideas. I think we're going to end off with a question for you, Isolde. How do you determine that your self marketing is on the right track? Any tips?
It's actually a very interesting question. And I think, typically marketers would tell you, oh, let's look at your followers, let's look at your reach, your engagement, and things like that. Those those could be indicators that people enjoy your content, but they also, for a lot of people, it's also vanity metrics. So a lot of people want to see, okay, I was on 100 followers, now I'm on 600 followers. Okay, that's good. People are following you. But I think what is even more important is if people are engaging with your content. So if they're actually interacting with your content, but more importantly, is reaching out to you and asking you, how can you help them with the problem that they see that you addressing as an issue or a service that you provide. So that is in marketing how we actually, and with my clients as well, I regularly ask them, so we're doing this for you, we're doing this social media campaign, we're doing this on Google Ads or website, or, we come up with the sales incentive campaign. What are the results that we're tracking from this? So I think one of the last thing I would, besides now the vanity metrics, let's say, and the feedback or the clients that you gain from your marketing, the last thing, and it's from a personal point of view, is that you are growing as in your own brand, that you're becoming more confident in your own message and refining that all the time. I think that's actually quite important and just something that I want to mention as well.
That's so helpful. Um, Joni also asked me, speaking presentations, how much of it do you believe is teachable and how much comes naturally? So, Joni, I teach people that have engineers, mathematicians, accountants, like the typical people that are very technically strong, academically strong, that don't necessarily enjoy speaking to people. Speaking can be a muscle that you develop, and there's a lot of frameworks and specific things that I loved what any other example of. There's the DIY or the do with or do for. So I tend to not do for people. I do. I teach people to fish for themselves. So what I prefer is for you to coming on a course or coaching, and then you learn all of the you know, frameworks, the foundation. This is how you do it. And then I've often had people come back to me for years, but now we're working on a much higher level because they have the foundations. So we don't have to go back to, like Hennie was saying, when they've not done anything before. At least they know how to tell a story. They actually bring all of the different elements. They've done the homework already. So by the time they come to me and now they have to put the Standard Bank pitch presentation for the project plan together, now we can really make it sexy. Now we can really work on the delivery. Now we can really, get it to that next level. So for me, it's about um, giving you the tools to do it by yourself. And then if you really have something very important, then we actually workshop it together to make you shine. Alrighty, so we've loved having you at this webinar. You have our contact details. You know how we can help you. We would love you to refer business to us, to connect with us and comment and engage on our posts. And thank you so much for all of the lovely comments here today. We'll make sure to send you the recording as well. And thank you so much. And watch out, there just might be more coming in the future. And have a lovely Friday. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.